Hello and welcome to E's Art Tips. Today I'm going to talk to you about drawing children. To draw children, you start out learning how to draw adults. So the average human head looks kind of like this. Now there's all kinds of different shapes that the human head comes in. They can be triangles or hearts or cubes or circles. This one's kind of elongated. Usually the dimensions of the human head are about halfway through is where the eyes are going to go. And of course the nose lines down the middle. About halfway between this line and the bottom of the chin is where the nose is going to fall. And about halfway between the bottom of the nose and the chin is where the mouth is going to fall. If you divide this again, you end up with where the eyes should fall. It also tells where the ears should fall. Ears happen to come out about right there. So if you're going to draw an adult head, it'll be about like this. Or like almond eyes. Bottom of the nose. Brows tend to go above. Brows tend to be a little bit lower than people think. You don't want that shocked look. And then when you're drawing the mouth, you actually concentrate more on the form of the upper lip. Because that catches shadow, because most of the light sources that we deal with come from above. And below that, the bottom lip, because that's, again, catches light. So that's what gives the lips their form. I'll do a tutorial about drawing eyes in the near future. And you got to think, the nose is catching some shadow as well underneath it a little bit. Now the hairline is typically going to, believe it or not, be about halfway between this line and the top of the head. So those are the general proportions for an adult human head. Now, some people might think that for a child, you're just going to shrink that. Not so. For a child, for one thing, all of their features, the eyes, the nose, and mouth, are kind of squished down towards the lower part of the face. So, and it's going to be a larger head with a tiny little chin. It's not because their brains are so much bigger, maybe it is, but everything kind of starts out a little bit lower. So whereas we use this line to say where the eyes went on the adult, it's going to tell us the top of the line of the eyes for a child. So your eyes are going to be more like right here. Now they're going to be bigger. Believe it or not, our eyes are the same size our entire life. That's why babies oftentimes will have such large eyes. They're going to be the same eyes you have when you're older. The cells may regenerate, but the size is the same. They're a little bit more open because, of course, that naive innocence that they have. And that means that that whole iris and pupil is going to be a little bit bigger on the babies because that's going to be the same size iris and pupil that they have when they're, say, 40. That's why babies look like they have such big eyes. The nose is teeny tiny. Our nose and our ears keep growing throughout our lifetime. So that's why eventually ears may even get hair coming out of them, which is a wonderful idea. So the nose starts out pretty darn small. Again, here's the halfway point, itty bitty. Little button nose. And the mouth is a little bit different because a baby or a child still is going to have that suckling shape. So that Cupid's bow is going to be really pronounced on a child. one of those things a lot of us women wish we kept as we got older, but that tends to diminish as we get older. So it's a little itty bitty mouth, a little itty bitty chin. Now here's the thing, the hairline on the adult, about halfway, not so on the child. They have a much higher forehead, so the hairline is going to be like way up here. Their eyebrows are not quite as developed as they're going to be when they get older, so they just don't have as much on eyebrows as adults do. So I tend to put them a little bit farther out just to give that open face expression look. Their ears might be little sticky out ears, but they're going to be cute little ears. Again, because they're starting their growing process. They're going to keep growing through the entire life of this person. And maybe a little bit of hair here and there. So that's your general baby proportions. Now, the big difference between adults and children as well is the neck. So on a child, you may not even see the neck. It might be that the neck is completely hidden. They're going to have really narrow shoulders. So think about all of these features are kind of concentrated into this portion of the face on a child, whereas they spread out as you get older on an adult. Now, Jessica Wilcox Smith is an illustrator who I do recommend that you check out. She was a famous children's book illustrator in the 1920s, 1930s, and one of the things that was her signature for drawing children was the nape of the neck. So if you look at the profile of a child, again, really big part of the head, you can kind of start by drawing a little bit of a peanut. There's our peanut shape. So you can imagine from the front, you're not going to be able to see any neck here, but that little nape of the neck is one of the cutest things on a little baby. So with that little peanut shape, you can get all the things that are coming forward. For instance, that little cupid's bow, that little lip comes really forward, and that little itty bitty chin with the big eyes. A really easy way to draw eyes and profiles is to just think of them as a big little comma like that. So it's this shape. It's a really easy way to draw eyes and profile. And then that little nape of the hair is coming out. Ears are always going to be about halfway. So we already determined that it comes to about the brow, so there's the ear. Now, a lot of people will put a big, strong line right here. That's not necessarily going to happen unless you've got somebody with a really strong jaw. So you might get a little bit of hint of something there, but probably not the big line that comes all the way down. So let's just continue this baby. Babies have really strange proportions. Again, it's kind of like a little peanut or like a little alien. They have these little bellies with this little sway back. So the legs are kind of situated on the back of their body with this little belly. If you've ever seen a new baby trying to walk, you've all seen them with their little legs going, oh, they just look really awkward, but they're so adorable. And what you'll notice here too is that a baby is a lot shorter as far as the proportion of the head to the body. So this is maybe 3.5. And yes, that's a little bit exaggerated, especially when you talk about illustrating for children's books. But the adult is going to be 7 heads tall. So if that's 7, you can imagine that's going to go all the way down to the bottom of the page almost. Very different proportions. You've seen them walk. They tend to be a little bit pudgier. So you're going to get these V kind of shapes when it comes to bending joints. You don't quite know what to do with your toes. Do the toes have to go up too when you're walking? I don't know. So if you watched my previous video about drawing with bubbles and boxes, here's where the bubbles come in. So you can just draw the arms as sausages while you're trying to figure out everything else. And maybe there's a little bubble for a hand. Strike a pose. Haha. So when Jessica Wilcox Smith would always give them a lot of her children these little bobs that the hair would be cut. Now this child is too young to have hair like this, but if it was a slightly older child, it might have a little bob like that if it was one of hers. Also think about hairlines come in right here at the crown. Actually, I'm not sure that is called the crown. I'm not sure what that's called. What is that called? Y'all leave me a message in there and tell me what that little spot right there is called. So there you have some really strange little baby proportions. So let's draw a slightly older child. I'm going to give him a little chin. I still want them really round. I mean, they've got those big cheeks. A button nose. These little divots on the corner of the mouth can really help define the muscles that happen right here. These muscles are kind of like donuts, and that's the inside of the donut. I should do one on drawing up noses. Little ears. Now I have no problem using erasers when you get too muddy and you can't really tell what you're doing anymore. Just clean it up a little bit. Some people don't think you should be able to use erasers like it's some criminal thing, but why do they exist otherwise? I also love to keep these things around. I use them like crazy because you see when I erase, I create all kinds of messy stuff on my paper, and it can create problems with your drawings if it gets underneath your lead, underneath your pencil point. Right, so this one, I'm gonna give her some little bubbles on the sides of her head. I love these. Little poofs. So that little line there is kind of an indication of where the shadow is for the nose. In fact, if you look at my tip on my little shading trick tip, I tell you why I do that way. So hopefully you'll have a look at that. So as they get older, their neck is going to elongate. But you can kind of think about it this way. A man, a really strong man, his head might be shaped like this, including the neck. So here's the jaw, or here's the chin, here's the jaw. You know, there's a football player's neck. For a child, you can almost come like a tulip, you know, like their head is a tulip blooming out of their neck. But the shoulders are going to be teeny. Their torsos are pretty long compared to everything else. So there's some cute little shoulders. Elbows are still going to hit about to the waist. There's those sausages and all coming into play. So a lot of the issues I see with people trying to draw kids where it's not working is because they're trying to draw adult shoulders, and adult shoulders tend to come really far out, really wide. Little kids are just, you can see it just narrows right through this whole area right here. And if you think about the legs coming off of the back like this, that'll help too. Bubbles for knees. This is the other mistake that I see people make when drawing children is they never get the legs long enough. You know, they'll get the whole top of the body's proportions correct and then itty bitty little stubby legs. I mean, yes, they're shorter, but they're still going to have correctly proportioned legs to the rest of them. The ankle bone on the inside is a little bit higher than the ankle bone on the outside. Feet can just be little paddles. Another thing, which I did not do on this one, adult hands tend to get a little bit more tapered. Children's hands tend to be a little bit more graspy. Just cuter in general. So let's see, let's put a cute little jumper on our girl. These little buttons. Big pocket. It could just be a little dress. Maybe it's corduroy. Little sockies. Maybe she's got a knee sock on this one. And it's falling down on this side. And some little Mary Janes. I have the sole of the shoe might be showing. So you can see her head is 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4 1/4, 4 1/2, the height of her entire body, whereas on the baby it's 1, 2, 3 1/2. So as we elongate, our head becomes less of a proportion of our entire height. So that's one of the biggest ways to remember this. One more thing, I'll give you a 3/4 view just because that whole peanut idea is really helpful when drawing babies. So I really do, a lot of times when I'm drawing kids, I'll start with peanut. So here's my peanut. Here's a little itty bitty chin, a little bitty nose, and just as I kind of was going with this motion coming off of this forehead here, scooping into the nose, I'm going to imagine I'm coming off of this shape, scooping into the nose here. And again with that little shadow underneath the bottom lip. Sometimes I get a little bit carried away on the peanut and I have to adjust my angle a little bit. They tend to be a little bit more shallow right here as well. They just don't have that big honky nose that you're going to get when you get older. I'm still using my peanut, but obviously I went a little bit much with the top of it. Again, eyebrow lines up with the ear. Maybe just a hint of this. You don't want a whole lot. And like I said, the back of the neck is where you get that cute little nape of the neck thing that tells us their age. Might not have any indication on the front. they have a very high forehead. So on the last video, I was showing, shadows of where they go on the human form. You're not going to get those really big, deep shadows on a child because they're just not that angular yet. That comes later in life. Let's clean up that eye a little bit. He looks very tired. You want that chubby little cheek in there. Again, drawing at a very strange angle for myself. Most people have a lean or a sway. Yeah, I see it. Woof, it goes that way. Anyway, you can see, so that's basically how you draw a child. So if you're going to use the neck, you concentrate on the back of the neck, not the front of the neck. You think about their head as a tulip shape with their shoulders dropping down and very narrow. In fact, you can see how narrow this is. It's about as narrow as the head. You keep the proportions as they get older, more head height. But when they're young, it's really, really small. We also tend to exaggerate the size of the head to the body when we're illustrating children's books, just because that is the proportions of youth and cute. And so that's what we do. So let's say if you were going to draw a bear, everything kind of comes down towards this little area right here, just like on the baby's face. You can see how this all translates into a cartoon figure. Ears up here. And this one, maybe 2, maybe 3 heads high. Maybe sitting. So you can see how the proportions of child translates into, say, a cartoon bear of some sort. Anyway, so that is just some tricks that I know about drawing children and how they're based on the rules of drawing adults, but slightly different. How they look like little aliens. They're just adorable little things, but they're really tricky, so they do require a little bit of practice. It's worth your time to just draw children for a while. And anyway, I think it'll bring you some joy. So that's it for today's Ease Art Tips. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you'll subscribe. I'm trying to build up my subscriptions so that I can monetize my channel. And come back for more Ease Art Tips soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.